Alright, welcome to today's episode of kind of how to make the 10th Cavalry Brigade. This is a very real alternative to your for your artillery slot. This is the Bofors 40mm anti-aircraft gun, and the 10th Cavalry Brigade actually had a battery of these. Now, though the brigade only had 4 of these guns, they were effective, and they could be utilized not just for an aircraft, but also for anti-tank. Remember, the Panzer I and Panzer II were the most prevalent tank on the battlefield, and a 40mm was definitely very dangerous when it came to those two tanks. It could also do some work on the Panzer III and Panzer IV, but though not as many of those were in the field. They were present, but just not in significant numbers. So anyway, 40mm is not a bad way to go. It does cost 10 more points than the artillery, but what you're able to get with this is the chance to do some good infantry killing as well as anti-tank. Actually, anti-tank effectiveness is better since it's a Pen 3 instead of a Pen 2. Now, what is the challenge, though, is when you're shooting at infantry, you only have the 1-inch template per hit. And, of course, when you're using an autocannon's 1-inch template, you bump them up next to each other if you do get those 2 hits. So you can get 3. You might be able to get 4, but it's not as much of a consistent performer against infantry, though it's still good. So 10 more points, you get 2 shots against your enemy armor at 3 pen. If you think that's not too bad, short range against a Panzer III and a Panzer IV with a 9+ armor is still going to put pins on them, and of course you'll glance. But everything that's 8 armor, you have a chance of penning, even at long range. Glancing even at long range, penning at short range from the front. So you're going to be consistently putting out pins and potentially knocking out those vehicles. So a very good possibility if you feel the need to do that. The only problem is there is no Bofors gun that is geared for, basically modeled for the 10th Cavalry Brigade. Now, what I had to do here is take the Warlord one and do some head conversions, basically. Now, if you take a look at the crew, I was able to use 3 of the 4 crewmen. Here's the 4th. Now, he's holding binoculars, and he has the standard Polish helm. Now, the Polish helmet obviously is not the right one, but they don't have greatcoats either. Now, greatcoats, that's okay, because greatcoats were just something they could wear over their regular uniform, and their uniform was the regular uniform. So what I was able to do was I'll trade out depending on my mood. Instead of him, I'll use the one of my mortarmen from my 10th Cavalry Brigade mortar team from Warlord Historicals, or I'll use one of the officers from Gorgon Studios. And he's the guy with the binoculars. Now, he'll have a black jacket and a beret. This one obviously has the greatcoat. Looks really nice. Now, for the other 3 figures, though, you don't have a choice. You have to do some cutting. Alright, so before you do any building of the, assembling, I should say, of the gun, you want to look at the figures. Alright. Now, what I was able to do on all 3 of these was take basically a sprue cutter and cut their heads off. Okay, by putting the blades, the flesh part of the cutter against the shoulders, you're going to cause the neck to have of the head that comes off to have some sort of a point to it, which is actually a good thing because you can kind of file some of those down, and what you'll end up with is a neck that could be used in any other model. If it has a pocket for the neck, so you can actually use it on as a replacement for, like for example, in the AK, or resistance, Polish resistance, one of their units, they can actually give them a Polish helmet on a German uniform or a partisan, civilian uniform. Gives you some options. You can still use the head. And then these heads, I want to say they're from Siberian Miniatures, but I'm not sure. I don't remember if I even knew. I did get these secondhand, these heads, but they're the regular Stahlhelm. They are the 1916. See how close you can get up, and you can see here the head. They actually have the lugs on the. These are pretty extended, so they're not the German Stahlhelm. These are the World War I Stahlhelm. So I had a sprue of 4. I was able to use 3 of them on this kit, and I'm pretty much good to go. That's the only conversion you need to do, and you're good to go. The rest of the uniform is perfectly acceptable for the 10th Cavalry Brigade because they use the regular Polish uniform. You can't see most of it most of the time because they got the gray coats on in a lot of the models, but that's what they wear. Now, again, it's up to you. It's a little stronger than the infantry gun or field artillery piece. Not quite as strong as the anti-tank gun, but of course you get 2 shots here instead of just the 1. So more likely to do a pin, maybe even more likely to do damage if you do get both the hits and try to do a glance or pen on the vehicle. Your choice. But again, for 60 points regular, it's not a bad deal. For 10 more points. So we're getting closer to a 1,000 point. We're actually, if you put all veterans, you're going to exceed the 1,000 points finally. So in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've already covered, but compare what you can do if you want to buy some of these additional supporting units as veteran and what makes sense from a historical perspective. Should it be veteran or should it be regular? And then after that, we'll go ahead and talk about some other auxiliary units that you can add to your 10th Cavalry Brigade force. All right, hope this was enjoyable and entertaining and especially informative. We'll see you in the next video. If you share, like, and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.